California's Golden Parks is made possible by Toyota, who is committed to keeping the air clean at all our beautiful parks with its hybrid Synergy drive technology. In vehicles like the innovative Prius, Highlander Hybrid, and the Camry Hybrid, lower emissions and higher gas mileage help hybrid Synergy drive vehicles create a minimal impact on the environment. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy another one of California's Golden Parks.
Hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser with the goats. Right now we are in the city of Oakland in Alameda County, about 15 miles east of San Francisco. And we have come here to visit a very unusual and a very historic park. And the goats have absolutely nothing to do with this story except that right now they are grazing on park land to help kind of eliminate some of the overgrowth here, eliminate a fire hazard here. We're going to be spending the whole day in Joaquin Miller Park, which is about 420 acres. Now, I know just enough about old Joaquin Miller himself to know that he was quite a character and that we are in for quite an adventure. And that's where we're going to have it, right here in Joaquin Miller Park, which is definitely one of California's golden parks. Hey there, fella.
I love you, California. You're the greatest place of all. I love you in the winter, summer, spring, and in the fall. I love your fertile valley.
We are starting off our adventure here at a stump. And I think that needs a little bit of explanation. First, you need to introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benavides. I'm the naturalist for the city of Oakland.
For the whole city of Oakland.
For the whole city of Oakland.
And that includes this park. And the question is, why did you bring us to an old redwood tree stump to start our day in Joaquin Miller Park?
Well, I invited you here today because you need to know Joaquin Miller, the man. And before that can happen, you have to understand what was here in this fantastic Alameda County known as the city of Oakland now, and what's left of virgin redwoods, and what possessed this man to create this park we call Joaquin Miller Park.
Okay, so what you're saying is there used to be, this is old growth redwood, right?
This is old growth. In fact, we're standing in a historical grove that had 30 feet in diameter fairy rings. The ships that were sailing into the bay before the compass chartering would use these redwoods as landmarks.
Really?
All these virgin redwoods have now become homes for San Francisco houses as well as the Bay Area.
When were they cut down? When were they harvested?
In the 1860s. And in fact, the redwood plank was so valuable that when the gold rush occurred in the 1849, everybody ran out to do the gold. When that panned out, so to speak, they came back to continue the lumbering because there was so much money to be made in redwood lumbering.
All right, so all these redwoods were totally, this was almost like clear cut.
Exactly.
But now, still, how did Joaquin Miller get into all of this?
Actually, he came to this area depressed in heart after a funeral. And when he saw the travesty that happened on this hillside, how barren it was, and he had this love of trees, especially when he was running around with Mountain Joe, and he had written the songs of the Sierras, so he knew what Yosemite looked like, and he lived his life among the Modoc Indians. Then he came here, and he says, wow, look what happened. And he wanted to give something back, and he really enjoyed the trees, and he also had faith in man. And so, with Sutro, who was over in San Francisco, 75,000 trees have been planted by this man and his friends and all those who came to help. And what you're looking at is actually the second and third growth of the redwoods. So this forest has come back, and we now are standing in the largest urban grove of redwoods in the United States.
Wait a minute, the largest urban grove of redwoods anywhere in the United States.
Exactly right.
All right, now this was all, and boy, it goes all the way back here. It's just a beautiful, this is just an unbelievable place. We know that Joaquin Miller was sensitive to the redwoods, planted the redwoods, replanted the redwoods after they had been harvested to build San Francisco. But we still don't know much about old Joaquin Miller, and I've done a little bit of research, and he was a character. In fact, he was a rascal. Well, I mean, this is a nice legacy, but there were a lot of chapters to his story, weren't there?
We consider Joaquin Miller California's best kept secret. And not only that, if you try to read any of his works, people would say he embellished a lot. One of the poets said he was California's best liar of the century.
He was a writer and a poet and a liar and a rascal. He was in a lot of court cases, lawsuits. He was in some messy divorces. His personal life was a shambles.
He was a man born before his time. Kind of sounds like today's people, isn't it? In fact, he was a visionary. And you probably, if we had him here today, he probably would blend in with some of the characters that we have in our headlines we read about today.
So he fit in perfectly with California.
Yes, he did. And not only that, he had the imagination that was needed to carry something of this magnitude off, because he was responsible for California's Arbor Day. He planted a Greek cross over on the Goat Island. He then, with, like I said, his friends and money, came up, literally planted Monterey cypress, Monterey pines, and the famous eucalyptus, which later on he advised somebody to plant eucalyptus when they were having malaria problems, because eucalyptus actually suck up the water, so it got rid of that problem. But his answer was to plant eucalyptus to save the redwoods, hoping that that would be an alternative lumber. And as it turned out, somebody made furniture out of it and it starts splitting.
Yeah.
It makes the best firewood, but not the greatest lumber.
So actually the old redwood turns out to be, for better or worse, the best lumber for making things. Okay, we're kind of skimming over the dark side of Joaquin Miller's story and the multifaceted side, because he was a writer, he was a poet, he wrote lots of newspaper articles. He was sent by the Hearst Corporation up to Alaska to cover the gold rush up there. He went to Europe, to Rome. He was in China. He was in Hawaii. He was all over the place. But he settled and spent his really serious years here in California, and that's what we're here to talk about today, right?
Yes, because he felt that the best writers were found in the Pacific area.
Well, I tell you what, if you can't get inspired here, you can't get inspired. Look at this redwood tree right here. This is just magnificent, and this is just really the beginning of our adventure, because now we're going to travel through this park, this 420-acre park, and look at the remnants of what Joaquin Miller put here over 100 years ago?
Just about. It was in the 1870s, and so we already passed the 100 mark on that.
Okay, we have left the redwoods and we have come up on this hill, and Stephanie, what in the world? We've got a sign here that says Pyramid to Moses, 1892. What in the heck is that all about?
This is Joaquin's answer to recycling rocks that were all over the ground at the time that he came up here. And we have a lizard running on the side of that monument there. He was religious, and this is his way of expressing his belief in God. And as you can see, a lot of rocks around here.
So he just gathered these rocks from around this property.
In fact, when he said he came here, all he saw was rocks and rocks and more rocks. And he kept moving until he found the soil that the squirrels actually had found to bury their nuts in. And yes, this is, part of it has serpentine in it. Part of it has, well, small fractions, I won't say large, small fractions of garnet in it. A lot of this is lava and porous rocks.
But it all came from around here.
Uplift. We're on the floor of the ocean that has been lifted up several times.
And
very
what was
volcanic.
his idea? Just to build a pyramid? I mean,
Well,
It's not it's a little crooked on the side there.
kind of like the personality. He was an unconventional person.
And he just
didn't-
found this spot, which is up on the top of this hill.
Beautiful spot. He aspired. He thought the trees reached up their arms and branches to the heavens, and so he looked for a high point such as this in which to exclaim that beauty and that grace. And you can see some of the trees behind him.
Yeah, look at these trees.
The
And look at
pines
this
and
view
the cypress.
out here, because talk about a view. Now, where are we looking right now?
We're actually looking towards San Francisco. One of the reasons he bought this area is he would be able to look out over the hundreds and then soon later thousands of campfires. And one of the things that Joaquin Miller is known for is putting in poetry or recording in a story form the life of the American West. Imagine no lights at the time, campfires twinkling up against the setting of the bay. This is the Pacific Ocean. You're looking at the bay that meets the Pacific Ocean, and a portion of this park actually looks over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow, this
At
is a big
sunlight.
park, and this is all Oakland out here now.
You're looking at the beauty of Oakland.
But when he was here, it was looking at the beauty of not a very big place.
No, in fact, Oakland became a city in 1850, and then he settled in here in the 1880s, about 1886.
Yeah.
And so, again, the American West was a rapid changing environment. And just between 50 to the time he was here, so much had drastically changed. And when he looked at this park, when he looked at the rocks that were here, when he looked at what was happening with human or mankind, and then trying to bring forests and trees and nature, he wanted to show the human impact among the beauty of nature and how they went hand in hand.
Wow. He really was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
He really was.
Because everybody down there in 1880 was talking about development and growth and change. And Joaquin Miller was already thinking about preservation.
It's interesting that John Muir was noted for a lot of the Sierra Club and everything. But actually, Joaquin Miller was very instrumental in actually doing what John Muir wanted, which was to protect the future. Joaquin Miller was building upon the future. And he would see slavery and the injustice that was happening to humans as a blight, much like what lumbering was done to the forests around here. That's a
Yeah.
blight. And he wanted people to love.
Would he have written from here? Would he have
yes.
sat up here and looked out and written from this spot?
He would have found there's probably not one section of this park he didn't sit and ponder and write and get inspiration from. He was very inspired.
It just keeps getting better, Stephanie. Where have you brought us now? This is one of the most spectacular sights I've seen anywhere in California.
This happens to be called the Cascades. And Joaquin Miller had taken the water. He was trying to find some way to bring that irrigation to the trees and everything, combining Palo Seco and Salso Creek in here. And what started by taking the rocks and creating a very small thing later on was built upon, but he started it here.
So he started it where? Somewhere up the
Up at
hill?
the top, up at the top.
And then when was all this added?
During the before World War II, people from WPA then started to put people to work.
So they built all of this rock work here. And look at these trees. Now, would they have been trees that he would have planted?
These trees came as a result of honoring the California writers, and he didn't plant them, but he inspired the people to create a grove for each of the different writers of California history.
Oh, wow, what a beautiful setting this is with the trees. And there's even more than this because it goes all the way down to this pool down here.
On a really good day before World War II broke out, you could see it lit and the water literally cascading all the way down to the pools at the bottom.
Wow. And how is this area used today? Because this is an absolutely spectacular area here.
Thousands of weddings take place, and it's just appropriate. You have some of the flowering trees right now. You have the buckeye, you have the redwood, you have some mallow, you have roses. All of this is the beginning of life and a continuum. And so it's just appropriate for many a bride and groom to start their life and journey down the road, so to speak.
And isn't it neat that this little grove of trees right here are here in memory and celebration of California writers over the years?
Jack London's, to name one of them, is a very famous writer. And it goes on, and at the top you actually see the Woodminster Theater. A lot of people come and enjoy theater under the stars now.
So is it a theater? That's a theater up there.
Exactly. And again, that's in keeping with what Joaquin Miller wanted. Something out under the stars to look to the heavens and enjoy. And now you get to enjoy the words of many a screenwriter or a player or a thespian, so to speak, underneath the stars in the beauty of the woods.
Wow. And it all started with a little stream up there.
Exactly.
120 years ago, and it's grown into this. This is spectacular. Oakland's jewel.
Exactly.
We're back in the redwood forest, and Martin, introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, I'm Martin Madaresi with City of Oakland Parks.
And we are standing in a little redwood grove right now, and what's so interesting about this is you're a young man, you planted this tree.
That's right, I planted this tree in about 1985, and we received a couple thousand one-year-old redwood seedlings from the state of California, and this started out as about a 6-inch tall one-year-old seedling.
So you planted that tree, it was 6 inches tall back in the mid-'80s, and it has grown to this.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
It is incredible how fast they grow. Do you ever wonder what this area must have looked like after they cut it all down back in the 1800s and there was nothing here?
Well, I imagine it was pretty bleak for many years before more trees returned to the site.
Well, when Joaquin Miller started planting, did he pretty well start the same way you did in the mid-'80s, just with little seedlings?
Oh yes, they started with small seedlings.
And where did these seedlings come from?
Well, I imagine he and his friends probably grew those seedlings.
Yeah, and how hard is that to do? I don't know anything about growing a redwood seedling.
Well, redwoods can be a little bit tricky, but we managed to do it.
Yeah.
And you can either grow them from a seed or take a little cutting from the sprouts that grow up around the tree and root those.
Now, when you're planting these trees down in here, do you ever, in a funny kind of way, feel like you're carrying on his tradition?
Oh yeah, there's a big picture of Joaquin Miller at our office, and I look up to him for that inspiration.
When you're in the park, you look up to him
Spiritually.
Spiritually, figuratively, and literally. You're planting the trees just like he did.
Just carrying on his legacy.
Now we've come to the green parachute, but Michael, it's much more than just a green parachute. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, I'm Michael Filgen, and I'm a landscape architect, and we have designed this nursery here in Joaquin Miller Park specifically to grow native plants that are local to this area.
Okay, now we've already seen where they're replanting redwood trees. This is a whole nother part of continuing the Joaquin Miller legacy.
Well, that's true. We're growing here some plants that are native to the understory of the redwood forest.
What does understory mean?
The understory are the low-growing plants. There's more to a forest than just the big trees. There are many different species that live among the redwood groves, and so we're growing some of them here.
Okay, so now this is undercover over here, so these would be the kind of plants that would grow under the redwoods, right?
That's right, and we've set up this shade cloth overhead so that the seedlings won't get burned by the sun. It's a pretty hot, exposed place here, and they need some shelter.
Now, do you take these things out and plant them literally in the forest?
We sure do. We gather them from seeds in the forest. We bring them here to the nursery and propagate them. We transplant them, take good care of them, and then we take them back out into the local wildland and replant replant them.
But there's more going on here than just replanting. And Sue, that's where you come in. Come on, let's walk over here. What is your duty in all of this?
Well, I'm an Oakland Public Schools teacher, and I'm also a member of the Joaquin Miller Native Plant Nursery, and I've been bringing students up here for the past 2 years. We've had over 1,000 students come up here just 1 day a week, and they do some propagation. They learn about native plants. They get to plant out in the forested areas and along the creek. And they learn a little bit about Joaquin Miller and native plants.
And get in the whole spirit of the place.
That's right.
And they would be taking plants like these. Now, these are plants that are planted out in open areas.
Yes.
And
they can handle full sun all the time.
I sure hope so, because they're not under any cover right now. But this must really get the kids and adults into the whole spirit of the place.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. I mean, it's a great hands-on educational experience for students. They do not forget coming here.
There is so much to see in this park, and now Stephanie has brought us down. Actually, we're right near the road that runs right by the park. What's that called?
Well, it's called Joaquin Miller Road, of course.
I guess everything around here is called Joaquin Miller, including this, which is really, now we've hit pay dirt. What are we looking at right here?
This is actually where Joaquin Miller lived, wrote, and eventually died.
This was his house.
This is his house.
Now, when did he build this?
This was built, close to around 1886.
Really?
When he decided to stay here in California.
For some reason, I expected something bigger than this.
He was a simple man.
Uh-huh.
He was a person who he wanted to strike it rich, and actually he ended up having like $6,000 from his Alaskan letters that he sold to the Hearst Corporation, and then came and bought 72 acres of land called the Heights. And this is where he built, and his expectation was to build upon it a community that writers and poets and all those would come up and live.
This is what was called the Heights. You talked about that once before. I didn't know what you meant. So this whole area was called the Heights.
Yes.
Did he have a name for the house?
Well, in true keeping to the personality of the man being mysterious, this is called the Abbey. Now, some people say it's named the Abbey after his mother, Abby, and other people said that when he went to London and he made it big over there, that he named it after the Abbey.
Westminster Abbey.
Mm-hmm. And he just leaves it up. He never would expand one way or the other, whether or not what was what.
Because it has kind of a church-like look here in the front. Now, who lived in this house with him? How many wives did he have?
Well, luckily he didn't bring all his wives here because they couldn't. But he actually had a marriage early on where he had 3 children. And then he came out this way to California, lived around Mount Shasta, had a daughter named Callie Shasta by one of the Indian women there. And then he had another woman that he married, that was Abby, and his daughter Juanita, who actually lived with him and was very responsible and was very artsy also, and the keeper of the father's memory.
Keeper of the father's memory. Oh! So she's responsible for kind of passing this legacy on.
Yes.
And making this a park.
And the city of Oakland had the foresight to buy this, to protect it, and along with other things like the redwoods that the Redwood League also purchased, it all encompasses over 428 acres of wooded forest.
Well, Stephanie, we are ending our day in the park here at probably the most significant place in the whole park.
Yes, this actually is the funeral pyre that he built. His intention was he had such a love for the Indian culture that when he died, he wanted to be burned similar to the same type of religion that they did.
Like in a big funeral pyre, burned out in the open.
Exactly.
Like this amongst all these trees.
Health department said, that's not going to happen. So he was cremated, and the ashes were given to his daughter Juanita. But when she died and they opened up the urn, there were no ashes. Turns out that she strewn her father all throughout this park.
Which, in a way, is even more appropriate.
Exactly. In fact, we have tracked a little bit of Joaquin Miller on the bottom of our shoes. So when you leave this park, you're going to take a little bit of a man that improved the quality of life here on this planet.
Well, you know what? Obviously, you are not totally objective about this man. You are smitten with him, and the truth of the matter is, like all of us, he had his good points and his bad points. We certainly know his bad points. He exaggerated the truth. He was kind of a scoundrel at different times in his life. But what he left behind is an amazing legacy for all of us.
That's exactly right. In fact, when we come into this world, is to do good or bad. Yes, he was a character. Yes, he's part of the American West, and those things are recorded. But look at this area.
Wow, he was a man, a poet. Look at this out here. This is his legacy right out here. These trees that are left behind as part of a legacy of a man by the name of Joaquin Miller, who was a writer and a poet and one of the earliest environmentalists. And today his legacy is here in this park, the Joaquin Miller Park, which is definitely one of California's golden parks. I hope you all have enjoyed this day and this learning experience about this man as much as I have. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed our visit to beautiful Joaquin Miller Park in Oakland. And if you'd like to go on this adventure again or share it with family and friends, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.
This presentation of California's Golden Parks was made possible by Toyota, who wants you to get out and see these incredible parks for yourself. Toyota is committed to preserving their natural beauty with its hybrid synergy drive technology in vehicles like the Prius, Highlander Hybrid, and Camry Hybrid. Lower emissions and higher gas mileage help hybrid synergy drive vehicles have a minimal impact on our natural wonders. We'll see you next time on California's Golden Parks.